So the first one, the analysis and problem solving, needless to say, it is in the name, isn't it? Business analyst or business analysis professional. The term analysis itself is very important, but I don't really give much of importance to the solving bit of this, because I don't know how much of solving and the solution aspect would be relevant to a business analysis professional. But I will say problem identification and working in the problem space, problem specification, problem communication, problem prioritization, um, uh, problem tracing, problem traceability. I think all of those are relevant terms, but I don't know if problem solving is a right term for that. But we will try and have a look at it, what that really means. So these are the skills that are needed by BA professionals to break down problems. That's what analysis is really about, right? So we're trying to take something and then we're trying to break it further and further into, so it's like a huge monolith. We are trying to cut it down into the different modules. From the different modules, we're trying to cut into different components. Each component will have some functionality. Each functionality could have some features. Each feature again could be broken down into different themes. Each theme could have different epics, and each epic could have multiple stories. Each story could have multiple tasks and subtasks. Each task could have multiple acceptance criteria, for example. So that's one way of looking the decomposition of a particular product or a particular feature. So similarly, anything in the world that we try and look at, if we want to try and make it simple, the only way that you can try and simplify things is by breaking down the complexity, by just trying to analyze. That's what analysis is all about. It's breaking down, whereas synthesis is the opposite of it, right? You're trying to bring things together. So as analysts, as BAs, the first thing that we need to focus on is how can we try and break down the complexity, how can we make it simple. And the only way that you can do is to by decomposing that, by trying to break it down further and further into manageable aspects, manageable tasks, manageable requirements, manageable pieces of work, for example. And that's how we can actually try and deliver value, because that's what is the value that we bring to the table when we actually work with architects, developers, designers, and testers. Each one has got a different role to play. Each one has got a different value to bring to the team. And we as business analysts need to bring this value of simplifying things in the way that it would resonate with the different other roles in the team, and that they could actually try and make it happen when it comes to the solution. But we should be the people who needs to define the problem, the opportunities, the challenges in a way that they can easily connect to, and they should be able to actually understand really quickly and easily without much ado. And that's why we should be able to find what is it that we need to do, what are the steps we need to take as team, what are the kind of things that we need to bring forth, what are the changes on the functionality, or the way it should work, how should that be done, would bring the most value for stakeholders, right? This is what is important. Again, we discussed this just now about the value that we're going to bring to the stakeholders, whether it's customers, the users, team, employees, senior management, suppliers, anyone. Stakeholder could be internal or external. So how are we going to bring potential value to them? How are we going to address those problems that they've been facing? How can we simplify things for them? How can we try and remove the pain areas? How can we try and address the challenges that they're facing? And how can we make things simple for them so that their life becomes easier, their work becomes simpler, and the tasks are done quicker? So that's the whole idea. And then the skills and competencies associated with this category are imagination. So we need to be imaginative, and that's why we should not be we should not be really worried about asking the questions, or even thinking really broad. So that's why I keep saying that don't be hesitant to ask questions. Ask questions about what, why, when, where, how. All these questions. Why not? Ask these questions. And only when you ask questions will you try and open up your mind, open your eyes and ears and mind to what's really happening around, why certain things are being done the way they are, what is the rationale, and then when things are happening, what is the context around that. So all these important insights would only be given when you've got the right questions to ask. And when you ask the questions, you get enough answers, and when you get the answers, that's where you're trying to open up your mind to get further answers and perhaps even better ways of doing things. So that's why you should not stop at asking questions like why, but also go beyond that. Ask why 5 times, 5 whys. Why, to get to the root cause. Sometimes you should be asking question, why not? Why can't we do it this way? Why only this? Why can't we just try and use a report? Why can't we just use, I mean, again, going back to the frugal innovation concept as well, right? So we were talking about the Cold War times when some of the American astronauts were using this space pen, which cost so many millions of dollars, whereas some of the other cosmonauts from Russia apparently were using pencil. Same thing. It's frugal innovation. So it's that as well. Sometimes you need to have simple answers to some complex questions. Sometimes it works. So we need to be open minded about all these. The decision making is important as well. So how critical is the decision and what time it is taken. Sometimes it's important to just take a decision and then just do it. Agility and agile development is all about that. It's not about taking months and years to take a decision and then again taking another year to implement it. It's all about taking a quick decision, just decide and then do it, and then develop it, deploy it, and then make it reach to the hand in the hands of the customers and users. Let them have a go at it, let them evaluate the product and then give the feedback, and then we can improve that continuously. All of this loop can be closed perhaps in a 2 to 3 weeks, whereas if you really go the long way, it's going to take years and years, and by the time you actually do something, things would have changed a lot. So it's important to understand also the importance of the decision making the right time. It's not about taking the correct decision. Sometimes you just need to take a decision, just move on and do it. Learning is a very important thing because we are trying to learn continuously. It's not just from our own actions, but also vicarious learning as what we call. We look at others, we learn from their mistakes, we learn from their success stories, and then we try and imbibe that. How can we try and make it a best practice if they're successful? What are the lessons learned if they're not really successful? How can we not repeat the mistakes? Sometimes it's okay to do mistakes, right? So there's no one size fits all, and that's what, for example, Elon Musk, who recently had this SpaceX failure. He says it's fine, it's okay to fail. There's nothing wrong. He's in that space where it's fine to do something and fail and then try and rectify and again take another step forward to come up with another solution to get to the space. So that's the kind of outlook we might need to learn. Never be afraid of making a mistake, and as the saying goes, always make new mistakes. So that's the whole idea. Don't make the same mistake again and again and again. That means you're not learning. Instead, if you're in the head, you fail, but fail fast instead of failing slowly and taking its own time, investing all the effort, money, and the resources you put, and then after about 2 years, if you fail, then you've got all this money, effort, and time into that's gone. That's completely wasted, as well as the rework that is required to recuperate everything. Instead, with agile, just do something quickly, fail, and then again try and do a new thing. So you are actually trying to conserve all these resources that you would have otherwise spent and failed. And problem solving again is another thing that they say is an important trait. This is what I found in the JDs, but if you ask me personally, I wouldn't be too bothered about the solving aspect of it. I would leave it to the experts, to the solution architects and the developers and the creative guys who are on the side of designing. For them, it should be more stressed on the problem solving side. For us, it's about identifying the problem, trying to prioritize a problem, and how we can try and ensure that the problems that we have identified or specified, communicated, and prioritized in a way that the team could really understand and catch on easily, and then from there on they should be able to build a solution that would solve the problems that we have identified, prioritized. So for me, that is a bigger contribution coming in from a BA, rather than trying to solve a problem, because I would rather try and let the right people do that solution creation, solution recommendation, solution implementation. I would be focusing on the problem space, and I would try and facilitate them. I'll try and support them. I'll try and make sure that they've got all the tools, the resources, and the time and the effort and the money and everything else required, and the clarity of the requirements, the prioritization of requirements, and everything that they need, the tools, the techniques, and the methodologies that they need to be able to come up with a solution. But I, as a BA, wouldn't really solve the problem for them. If that were the case, then I don't need all the other solution experts, solution architects, and developers to do that bit. So I would just have one person in the whole team, and that is BA. So that's my view again. But yeah, you should be just taking this with a pinch of salt, the problem solving. Systems thinking, very, very important for a BA, because again, systems thinking is that holistic thinking, how we should be looking at a particular problem or a system or a product from multiple perspectives and viewpoints. From that of a business person, how do they view that, as opposed to, for example, a technology person, and then with an operations, the infrastructure, customers, marketing. Each of these have got sales. Each of these has got a different point of view, and the way they look at the same thing, whether it is a problem, a system, product, process, or anything, service, they look at the same thing from their own viewpoint, from their own role, because that's important. You can't just ignore that, because each of these comes from with their own background, their own experience, their own expertise, their own education, right? So we as BAs should be in a position to kind of understand that and make an effort to understand what each of these different viewpoints are looking at the problem, how they're viewing it, and then what you as a BA could try and do to help address their view of the problem. How can you solve how can you enable the team to help solve each of these different stakeholders' problems? So that's where the holistic thinking, process, organization, product, information, technology, the puppet view, all of that is really important to bring to the table. And conceptual thinking, again, is very important, because you've got different conceptual models and conceptual understanding, again, going back to this systems thinking based on each stakeholder's perspective. So we should be able to understand the mental models that each of these different stakeholders would have for each of their perspectives, and then we should be able to knit together the coherent picture, working across these different stakeholders. Sometimes there would be conflicts, sometimes there would be differences in opinions. The way a business person would see a system is completely different from the way a technology person views it, because the business always looks at the aspects of for example, the strategy, the market, the returns on investment. What does it take, the investments options, and how often should you try and deploy that? What are the returns on investment? This is how a business person would look at things, and perhaps even the customers and the sales. Whereas the technology person would not look at it this way. They would try and look at it from the point of view of what is the infrastructure, what are the kind of technology stack, right? What are the architectural options? What is the set of constraints that you're working in? And what are the tools that you can deploy? And what is the longevity of the solution that you're trying to propose? Is it short term? Is it going to fit into the context of the existing technical infrastructure that you already have? So their viewpoint is totally different, and that should. So that conceptual thinking, that sense of cutting across the different themes, different stakeholder viewpoints, is really important as a business analyst. And then the next important trait is a visual thinking, very important, because as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So sometimes it's good to actually be able to visualize the information, visualize the problems, visualize the potential solution in a way that is understandable by all the stakeholders, irrespective whether you're a business person or a technology person or a customer or a user. It doesn't matter. So when you look at a picture, when you look at a wireframe, when you look at a kind of a potential solution, a prototype, or If you look at a mind map, or you look at some of these sketches, mock-ups, it says a whole lot of things that you would want. Rather, you know, perhaps it would take about 300 pages or 400 different documents to write, to convey exactly what you can pretty much capture in 1 or 2 screens. So it's important that we as BAs again need to be thinking visually, and that's where, some of the tools like OmniGraffle and the Visio and all these different tools. Now we've got plethora of tools available for us to be able to capture this thinking visually, and use it when we try and communicate, and even sometimes to specify the requirements, and be able to share it with the stakeholders. So again, just to kind of summarize each of one of the points that we discussed. So imagination, it really helps in generating new ideas and solutions. So that's the reason why we should keep our mind and ears and eyes open to receiving these ideas and potentially some of the solutions as well, from different directions. Decision making, understand the rationale for decision, and helping others to make decisions in time, and also, within budget. Sometimes it could really help to offer the contribution of making informed decisions to other stakeholders. It's not just about taking some decision, but what is the underlying rationale for taking the decision, through the support of data, through objective and subjective analysis that would really help to take good decisions. Sometimes it's okay to take bad decisions, but then it's all about the perspective again, depending on which industry, what you're trying to do. Learning is the ability to take in new and different forms of information, with a view to adapt and evolve present knowledge in an ever-changing environment. So that's what we were talking about in terms of how we would need to open up to learn, not only from our own mistakes, but also from others' mistakes, others' success stories, and how we can try and ride the waves and make sure that we are leveraging the concept of this vicarious learning, online learning, blended learning, and everything else. How can we learn continuously as continuously evolving organization and teams? Problem solving is, getting to the root cause of a problem, and we're trying to communicate this to the stakeholders and providing options. Again, that's where it's important. It's not solving per se, but it's trying to provide the options for solutions. You're trying to recommend the potential solution options, not the solution. So that's where I would like to bring in the difference. So again, it's all about the perspectives again. So problem identification, prioritization, communication, specification, and transitioning into the solution space, facilitation to create the solution. I think that's pretty much what I would conjure up as the contribution from a BA to the team. Systems thinking is understanding the interactions and interdependencies among people, processes, systems within the organization, and information technology. All of these, different perspectives again. Conceptual things about interacting with and applying micro level information on a macro scale. That's where we talked about different conceptual models, different ways of mental models built up by the stakeholders in a way that you're enabling them to take decisions at a strategic level, at a macro level, so that the operations are happening and the solutions are being developed at the micro level, which is basically on the ground by the development team. Visual thinking is about breaking down concepts and models to stakeholders to facilitate understanding. And that's where we've talked about using some of the tools, such as OmniGraffle, Visio, and Balsamic, Sketch, all those mind mapping tools, everything else.